Shut up and sit down.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rural Report. I am your Rural 2IC, and today is a video that I have been looking forward to making for a little while. I've been holding off on it because I've been trying to get the means to do a little bit better editing. I'll probably revisit this one as I still don't have all the tools that I'd really like to make this video, but I wanted to at least kind of get this out there, and we'll see the reaction. And if this has hopefully the reaction I'm hoping for, then I'll be able to really make a fun one. But for this one, we're going to just dive straight into this one. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do this video, which is going to be the timeline of what to expect in the scenario of a large-scale EMP attack, solar flare, or a cyber attack. All right, well, for this scenario, it just happened. So that EMP, that large solar flare, or that cyber attack has just happened. So we are now at ground zero, and it is 0 to 6 hours. This is going to be entitled Ignorance to Confusion. And the way that I put this down is when this just happens, this event is going to basically make it to where everybody's going to be confused right out of the get-go. There is no social media, there's no phone line, no communication, and so nobody's going to know exactly what happened. Is this just going to be somebody hit a telephone pole? Is this, just some localized thing? Just some small event? Nobody's really going to understand how large scale this actually is. So for the first little part, you're going to have ignorance, especially a lot of the people that live off-grid to semi-off-grid, that they don't use a lot of technology in the first place. They may not even realize anything's happened, especially if it's just a cyber attack. They're going to be out plowing the fields. They're going to be out fishing, hunting. They don't even realize anything's happened yet. And so as the hours tick by, then you start getting into confusion, because now we're getting a little deeper into this, and things have still not come back on. No social media, no actual official public message from anybody in the leadership. And now people are going to start craving that official statement from somebody in authority. And so the longer we go, people will start filling that void with all sorts of different ideas, and rumors will start flying, and things will begin to happen, and that will take you, in my opinion, probably through your first 6 hours. Once we've gotten through that phase, the next phase is going to be 6 hours to the first 48 hours. This one I'm going to label the Good Samaritan versus crimes of opportunity. Now, the good people, when all this begins to go down, you're going to have a lot of religious groups and just good-natured people that's going to be helping each other. They're going to be providing whatever assistance they can. You have a lot of people that's going to run to churches. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to go start checking on elderly, nursing homes, hospitals. You're going to see a lot of people that are just checking on their neighbors. And so you start having the Good Samaritan. Everybody's going to be kind of helping each other. Versus the flip side of the coin, you're going to see the people that see this as crime of opportunity. So this is either going to be people that are already kind of criminal natured, that they're going to see this as easy targeting. After the first 6 hours, they see that everybody is confused. There's no power. That means that, even law enforcement doesn't have radios. I mean, security systems are down. No way to call for help and things like that. And so there's going to be a lot of people that take this as, an opportune time to go commit crime. Now, this is going to also be the kind of front door lock on a typical front door of a house. I'm not talking deadbolt reinforced, whatever. The typical just doorknob lock. Those are basically to keep an honest man honest. Because let's face it, the average person can kick a door in. So that's not going to stop anybody. That's just that person that walks up there, jiggles the handle, it's locked, they walk away. That is to keep an honest person honest. And in the times like this, in the first 48 hours, there's going to be a lot more people that are going to test that and realize that door is wide open and they're going to go through it. So in this first 6 to 48 hours, that's going to be the time that you're going to have to do some self-assessment. That probably for some preppers, you're going to be part of that Good Samaritan group, where you're going to check on the people, kind of get everybody rounded up. You're going to be trying to figure everything out right along with everybody else. And this is where you're going to start doing a lot of your deciding on bugging in, bugging out, what you need to do, your red lines, things like that. But in my opinion, that right there is your first 48 hours. So we've got through 2 days. The next phase, 2 to 5 days. Now, in this one, I have labeled it self-reliance versus panic. Now, preppers will begin to really assess, are we bugging in or are we bugging out? They're going to start fortifying. They're going to start really going over checklists and different preps and different lists of different things. They're going to be pulling out different types of communication. They're going to be pulling out a bunch of everything that they've been kind of planning for this event. Your people that do not prep, your normals, they are going to start having panic really set in. The big reason is there's no social media. There's no way for them to communicate. There's no way to purchase anything. Most of your stores, are not going to be doing any sort of transactions. Your ATMs are down. Most people don't carry cash on them anyway. Your gas stations aren't going to be able to give you gas. There's going to be a lot of panic really set in after that kind of 2 days. It'll really get worse up into that 5 days. Now, again, this is just my opinion. Panic may set in within the first day in something like this. We don't know. We've never gone through it. And so this is just my speculation based on history. I could be way off. It could happen a lot sooner. I could be way off that it could happen a lot later. But usually history repeats itself. And usually in this time, this is when the people that are more prepared for a scenario really buckle down and start going in self-reliance mode. They've already went through Good Samaritan mode. I've got the people I know that I love and trust taken care of. Now it's time for self-reliance and taking care of my inner circle versus the people that are unprepared. Now all the panic is completely set in. A lot of people don't have more than a couple of days worth of food and water. They're really running out, if not have already ran out. They don't know how they're going to get more. And so this is really the beginning, in my opinion, of when things really start getting dangerous. Now, to overlap just a little bit, somewhere in the 3-day to the first 2 weeks, this is where I put in chaos. Now, this goes for everybody. This is going to be one of the most dangerous times. And I overlapped it because I can see it happening within the first few days, where it might take, up to 7, 10, sometimes 14 days for full-fledged chaos to really ensue. Now, they have that old kind of prepper adage that we're only 9 meals away from total anarchy and chaos, and so most people don't have that preparation of food and water set back. And so, depending on the situation and depending on what actually happens, we're talking about power. That means that a lot of your utilities are down. That includes water and sanitation. So that's why I put it up to 3 days in versus it could take all the way out. Now, fear and hunger is really what's going to spark all this. You already had your crimes of opportunity, and that's going to be the people that's going in and looting for the things that do not make sense. They're going to be popping in and stealing TVs and video games and things like that when the power's out. So I don't know why you're getting those in the first place, but whatever, let them do it. It's useless stuff. The big thing that I will say that I've always watched out for is any sort of unrest. Now, in this burden, this is the chaos. This is probably the most dangerous time in all of this. But going forward in a real world scenario, if you see any unrest that includes looting, when they're stealing tennis shoes, purses, TVs, that's all crime of opportunity. When they stop that and they're going in and stealing milk, bread, eggs, butter, that is out of hunger. That is really when things are going to get real. So you have to watch not quite the event, but what's happening in that event. And when all the rules become void because all the order of a civilized society has completely gone and completely collapsed, chaos will ensue. There will be mass anarchy in all the streets. This is going to basically be an every man for himself sort of time period. And so if you are going to bug in, this is fortification time. This is high alert time. If you're bugging out, you really need to make sure that you are close to your bug out location, if not already there, before you get to this period, because you do not want to be out and about traveling when you're in this period. Let's go to the next. The next one I've put down is 2 weeks plus. This is going to be the 2 weeks to, let's go ahead and say 3 months for the sake of this one. This is going to be the gang/mob rule time. We've already seen chaos and panic built into chaos. So as people really kind of crave that rule and order, that the chaos ensued, there is bodies everywhere, there's, things have been looted, you have complete civil unrest and riots, things are on fire. They're going to want some sort of authority, and that's where your gangs and your mob rule comes in. Now, when this time happens, this is also going to be an extremely dangerous time, because in the beginning of this, they're going to sort themselves out. You're going to be on one side or the other, and you're either going to willingly or seek out that group of people for safety reasons or whatever reasons, or the longer this goes, you're going to be forcefully recruited. Now, sadly, if you look at history, usually most of the people in one side or the other in these groups have already been decided, whether you know it or not. A lot of them seem to go by age, by skin color, by social class, by territory, and this is going to be one of the ones that it's going to be an extremely dangerous time, because you are not having the survival of this person's hungry or that person's thirsty, and it's one-on-one, now you're putting larger and larger groups together that are basically all going to be kind of fighting for the same thing. And so this is going to be one of the big things that you need to take into consideration, because I put this in about that 3-month period. How many of you watching this have 3 months worth of preps and supplies? How many people can survive in their bug in or bug out location for 90 days? I know it's a lot to ask. I know there's a lot of people that will watch this and chuckle, and they'll be just fine. And great, if you're in that, perfect. This is a channel that is kind of dedicated for the new people. It's just getting started. And so hopefully this timeline will really get you thinking that, yes, getting through the weekend, getting through 3 days or a week is a great, great start. But if we're talking about something extreme, and I know this is an extreme scenario, you need to be thinking a lot longer term and what's going to happen as time goes on. So with that, let's go to one of the final events. Now we've gone through all that. Next up, 3 months and afterwards. We just went through the gang and mob mentality phase. Now, small groups are either going to fight to the death and take themselves out, or they're going to basically be merged into larger groups. And this is either going to be a friendly merge, kind of taking out a common enemy, or it is going to be a forced merge, and which you can have some infighting or whatnot. There's multiple different ways that this could pan out. But in the aftermath, when you get to those 3 months, this is where a lot of agreements are made and things broken up into territories, so that way fighting can lessen, if not almost stop. And depending, so if you live maybe in a larger city, this will be, your gang A takes north, gang B takes south, Main Street divides you. As long as you and your group stay up there, me and my group will stay down here. We leave each other alone. There's your territory, area, and you go through it like that. This also might be one of the things that if it is a small town, maybe there's only, a couple hundred people in that town, you may have it to where it's kind of a warlord area to one group takes over everything. It may not be, 2 groups. And, each one of those scenarios is going to be, equally as dangerous. So for the most part, getting as far away from a city as possible is going to be one of your best bets of survival. Not saying it can't be done, because being in a suburban area or just outside of a suburban area is extremely possible to survive, to where you're on the fringe of it or just outside of, their territory. So with all that, let's go ahead and look at just a couple of side note possibilities. Possibility 1, at any time, there could be any sort of ex or current military or law enforcement that may kind of set up their own, let's say, militia in this part. And they may end up kind of taking a role to where they can take over a small town or a good portion of the city and set up, their own kind of makeshift bunker / safe zone. They also might be able to fend off attacks to really create a safe zone, also kind of recruit and maybe even seize, the other portion of the city And, this might be one of the scenarios where you get lucky that something happens. There's enough like-minded, able-bodied people that not only can you create a safe area, but extend that safe area and have it to where decently like-minded people are in control versus mob rule warlord, gang style, uh, you know, mentality rule. So, possibility one. Let's move to possibility number two. Now, possibility number two, a foreign country. If word gets out by whatever means, if we're not saying that this has to be a world thing, maybe this just affects the country that you live in. Maybe you get some people that were close enough to the border that they were affected, but over, a few months, they were able to travel by whatever mode of transportation and means necessary to where they got across the border, to where maybe it didn't affect them, to where they do still have power and utilities and communications and whatnot. And they get word to where a foreign power decides that this is the time. There's been already the mass chaos, the panic. Everybody's, and completely confused and focused on other things, that either the guise of help or just coming in and forcibly taking over. And this kind of creates a whole new scenario because, certain countries want land and resources. And depending on where you're from and where you're at, you probably have land and resources that somebody else wants. And so this is one of the scenarios that I didn't want to overlook. But at any point in time, during any one of those phases, something like this could happen. So just another one of the things to think about. I thought I would mention it. Let's go ahead and wrap this up with final thought. All right, so we just went through our timeline. Now, this by no means is me having a crystal ball or telling you exactly what's going to happen, because I'll tell you right now, I have no clue. The only thing that I did was I went back through history on, let's say, catastrophic events and just looked at the timeline of what ensued after the event happened. And I looked all around the world, that included US, outside of US, and just looked for major events that were either, affecting large people or a large area to most of the country, if not all the country, and just see in a timeline what happened. Kind of wrote them all down, put everybody together, and thus created my own timeline on this. Will any of this pan out? Who knows? I hope not. I don't want to see any of this happen. But this is just kind of a strategic way for me to look at as a possibility of, if a scenario like this played out, what is a probable timeline of what to expect in kind of an order. So that way, as the days tick by, I kind of know where the mindset and where things are heading. So you can kind of look at the different scenarios that we put out there. Some of these might be longer, some of them might be shorter. You need to look at your preps on all the different things. Would you bug in or bug out in a scenario like this? If something like this happened to you right now, what is your plan? Are you bugging in? Or are you bugging out? Do you have the preps that you need for this? Are you prepared for a major scenario like this? Is this something that you've even war gamed out with your family, your mag, your tribe, what have you? Is this something that you have thought about? Is this something that you really might want to think about? I would encourage you, if you haven't sat down and thought about something like this, to really sit down and go through a scenario. Something like this happens. Let's go ahead and put a timeline out. This will probably happen here, here, here. This is what we're going to do. First day, when this happens, something goes, whatever, we need to do this and this and this. This happens, everybody needs to meet here. This happens, and just go down through and make sure that you have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. Make sure everybody's on board with it that's involved. Then go through and dry run everything. take and go to everybody's at work. If everybody's off on the weekend, pick a Sunday, everybody drive to the parking lot of their work, sync up that at 12:37 the event happens. What are you doing? How you getting home? You know, park your car, try and walk home from there. Can you do it? You know, there's a bunch of things that you can do to really give yourself real world experience on what to expect if something happens. There's a lot that can happen. And I'm going to tell you that any prepping channel that you watch that tells you this will happen exactly this way is dead wrong. This has all never happened before. It doesn't matter really what the event is in an extreme case like this. Now, if you're talking about something localized like a natural disaster or something like that, we've been through a ton of those. There's a bunch of people out there with great info and great knowledge that know what they're talking about. Those are the people, you know, to listen to on a small scale. But when we're talking about large scale of something like a solar flare, something like a massive EMP, we're talking about, you know, a huge cyber attack. You know, nobody has lived through that. Nobody knows what the outcome is, what to expect, how long, what to endure, different things like that. The purpose of going through something like this is to war game, so that way you can put down multiple plans. You can mentally prepare for this, so that way you are not caught up with all the rest of the people when they're running around and panicking, when they're out there in total anarchy. You're not one of the people out in the streets, you know, trying to do what everybody else is doing. You already have a plan. You're following your plan. You've already thought about all this because you prepared. So I hope this helps. Again, we'll probably revisit this in the future, do a more fun, in-depth, better editing and all that video in the future. But with that, just remember, remain united. We're all prepping in this together.